This is 9:14 p.m. on a Sunday, and I'm sitting there, and still working. It's Sunday. I haven't seen my family for days because I leave really early and I get home really late. So my kids are asleep, my wife's asleep. When I leave, she's asleep when I get home. So it just kind of sucks, right? And I have my bank account open, and at the time I had $973,470 in my bank.
I got $1 billion mindset, steady as the flow, navigating on my time spent, letting us know. $1 billion.
Guys, first off, hope you all enjoyed lunch. Again, want to thank y'all for this morning. Everyone playing full out. Y'all are holding up to your end of the bargain. Putting yourselves in, different situations. I know the breath work was definitely a brand new experience for a lot of y'all, and I'm hoping that y'all having fun right now. So I'm excited for this portion of today. Throughout the weekend, we're going to be having different guests come in, and I'm very thankful for the guests that we have each day. I'm really excited about the man that's sitting here next to me right now. This is Tino, aka Shark Tino, and just phenomenal human being. He's been a pillar in the Arizona community as an entrepreneur, somebody that's been doing a lot of give back. If you've ever been out to any of his events, you'll see he never charges for them. He has catered bars, catered food. He has speakers coming in that are 7, 8, 9-figure earners that he just has them pour into people. And a lot of the speakers that he has come out to his events, these guys don't want to, they're not like me. I like talking. I like being on stage. His speakers, Tino's just like, yo, you guys have value to give, right, and it's your responsibility to give back to others. So when I reached out, Ingrid and I asked Tino to be here, and I got to be honest, when he said yes, I kind of had a little fanboy moment of yo, for real? You see the value in what we're doing, and the fact that he was yo, he saw the itinerary, he's this is really dope what you have going on. And I appreciated that validation. I didn't look for it, but I appreciated getting it. Because when there's someone that you respect, I respect Tino's opinion. And so when he shared that, I was just, oh my gosh, excited. So what we're going to be doing right now is we're going to have a bit of a podcast interview. I want to dive into your story,
Perfect.
Tino. Want to hear more about, your past, what you're working on. That way the room is able to gain benefit from it. And also at the end, we're going to open it up to Q&A. So if y'all have questions, do me a favor, just write them down on your paper. And as you're listening to Tino, let me give y'all a little hint. And I'm going to bring us in for a second. But when you listen, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions while you're listening to this conversation. The first question is, how can I use what I'm learning? So if you hear something that stands out to you, if it's inspirational, if it's a tactic, just ask yourself, how can I use what I'm about to hear? Then ask yourself, why must I use what I'm learning? And finally, ask yourself, when and where will I use it? This way, you can actually learn from the information, and it's not just entertainment, but instead it's something that changes your life. I like to say that information changes situations, but only with implementation. So on that note, we're gonna jump in. So, Shark Tino, appreciate you for being here,
Thank you for
bro.
having me. I just want to say real quick, thank you, Ingrid. Thank you, Marlon. I appreciate you guys for having me. And for those of you guys who don't know me, I'm local here from Phoenix currently. I'm born in San Diego, but I moved here my senior year of high school. And I just got to say, if we can give these two a round of applause and the other people that helped make this happen, because this is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. I actually have a mastermind at the end of this month, and I'm kind of oh man, I got to step my game up, because everything you have on the itinerary, the environment, I can see, I walk in and already there's somebody pouring into people. There's real actionable value that's being given, and I'm whoa, this is insane. And no offense, like I said to him, no offense, I did not expect this, and this is super high level. So first of all, you should give yourself a pat on the back for being in this room, because these people actually truly care about you, right? They want you to win. But not only that, the people that are to the left and the right of you truly care about you as well. So it's very rare that you see a small collective or even a big collective of people that truly want you to win, right? Everyone has that crab in a bucket mentality where it's oh, he did this, so that could have been mine. Or why does he drive a Lambo, or why does he have $100,000 watch? Like that, it's like a scarcity mindset, right? But in here, everyone lives in abundance. I can tell just by everyone's just how like locked in you're in. He's talking, and you guys are writing this stuff down. And to bring up to that point, like those instructions you gave are paramount. It's not just entertainment, right? Because I mean, you can watch. There's far more entertaining things than watching me up here with tattoos and a bald head talk for an hour. But actually executing, right? Taking what you can and what you can apply to your respective business and make that grow with purpose, right? With intent. Doing everything that you do is with intent, or it should be theoretically, to gain something out of it. Not necessarily monetarily, whether it's positive growth in spirituality, mindset, physical appearance, or physical health, or just all around just feeling better. So I just want to say thank you, first of all, for having me, and I'm excited to be here. So
Man, I'm excited. So we're gonna jump right into it, and
Okay.
thank you for the kind words.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back in your history. You're doing well as an entrepreneur now. I love it. Like people see you on social media, they see the Lamborghinis, they
Yeah.
see the multiple businesses, they see the business partners and
Right.
the trips. But that's not where you started.
no, absolutely
Right?
not.
Bring me back to the origin
Sure.
story.
So I'm the first generation. Like my family both grew up in Guadalajara, Mexico. I'm first born here in America, and you know, like everyone's dream for their kids is to go to college, become a doctor, become something, right? And for me, my dream, ever since I was a kid, was to be a soldier, be in the army. Actually, I wanted to be a Marine. My stepdad, my mom, and my dad divorced when I was like about 8 years old. And we grew up in Shelltown, San Diego, next to a boarded up crack house. Everyone has a boohoo story, right? I'll fast forward through it though. So my senior year of high school, my stepdad, who she remarried a white dude. He was really cool. His name's Jim. He raised me from the time I was like about 9 years old till about, I want to say 17, 18. And my dad wasn't around that much. I would go visit him. He moved to Las Vegas, but my dad was more like he was just a friend, right? Like a dude who had the latest gadgets, Nintendo and stuff, but didn't really teach me a whole lot of life lessons. So I kind of leaned on my stepdad, and he was in the Navy and retired from the Navy. So I was like, hey, I want to be in the military, but I want to be a Marine. I don't want to be a sailor. And long story short, I moved here my senior year of high school, the beginning of senior year. I went to Agua Fria High School in Avondale. And I was in ROTC for 4 years of high school. First, it was Navy ROTC, which my stepdad was really proud of at the time. And then when I moved here, I was in Air Force ROTC. This is the first time I ever tell this story, so it's actually pretty cool. And nobody ever cares about before I was rich, right? Then they had a falling out. He became an entrepreneur, owner-operator for a trucking company. He bought his own truck and started traveling along, and people fall out of love or whatever, and they divorced. So I joined the Army, and I was gone. I was gone in the Army for 7 years. I did 5.5 Special Forces and 2.5 intelligence to start off. So I got to travel the world. I did all of South America. I did Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, all the stands, right? And I got to see a lot of crazy stuff and play Call of Duty in real life with no respawns. But I will say this, it gave me discipline and structure, because you had to grow up quick, right? Mm-hmm. I was like an 18-year-old kid who wouldn't even clean up his room or make his bed, joining the Army. And, afterwards, now I'm like, dress right dress. I'm very OCD. Like the bottle is the label's facing this way because the camera's there. When I first put it down, it was like this, and I moved it. I know nobody saw that, but it doesn't make a difference, but to me it does. It's stupid stuff like that. But what it did teach me was discipline, accountability, and always striving to be better. So after the military, towards the end of my stint, I like to call it a stint like it was a prison deal, right? Towards the end of one of my deployments, I started losing a lot of friends, a lot of battle buddies, right? We were in Iraq and stuff, and they had, at the time, was a Special Forces reenlistment bonus. It was needs of the Army. So you would sign up for 20 years minimum, 20-year career. You would get a $150,000 bonus. You would get half up front, tax-free, and then every year on your birthday, I guess, of signing up, you would get an amount, prorated amount, right? Divided over the amount of years you had left. And I remember I was like, man, that's a lot of bread. Like for a young guy like me, I was 24 at the time, 24. Picture me with a full head of hair. I was 24, I had a six pack, I was hardcore, I was like, you know, rucking and doing all this stuff and jumping out of airplanes, and I just wanted to do it, but at the same time, it was like, I'm committing my life and I'm accepting that my life is worth amount of money, a certain amount of money, right? Because I've seen and felt my friends die. And I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do with this money? I'm going to go back and buy a cool BMW. And then what? I'm going to enjoy it for 3 months. And then I'm going to get deployed again. All the while still making payments on the BMW and getting shot at. And, you know, just, it didn't make sense to me. So I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got out. But I did meet a plastic surgeon over there. He's actually from LA. We're still good friends. And he was National Guard. So he was part of a practice, and he was doing he was doing at the time boobs and noses, right? Boobs and noses, they pay the most.
Yep.
So that's what he was doing. But his passion was reconstructive surgery, burn victims, disfigurements, things of that nature, cleft lips. And so he signed up for the National Guard, or the Reserve, excuse me, to go over there during wartime and fix people that were burn victims, kids that had had limbs blown off, all types of different things. And I got to become really good friends with him. And it made me just fall in love with the idea of helping people. Because they would always tell me, you know, we would go out there and we'd get shot at and we'd shoot back, and, you know, stuff would happen. People would get put in bags and stuff. And I would always think, like, man, what am I doing this for? Like, what am I doing this for? And my sergeant would always, my first sergeant would always say, hey, we're helping people. We're helping people. You always got to remember you're helping people. And it's crazy. When I saw him helping those kids and people, it really hit hard.
Yep.
It made me realize that I'm not helping people to the best of my ability. So I came back and I got out of the Army. I decided not to sign up for the $150,000 bonus. And I got like, it's called paid termination leave. When you get out, like you have accrued amount of leave, paid time off, basically PTO in the civilian sector. And so I had a good 3-4 months to kind of just chill and figure out what it is that I wanted to do. During that time, I played a lot of Call of Duty and I drank a lot. Okay, so like I had PTSD. I saw a lot of ugly things. Had kids and I don't really talk about this a lot. So I saw a lot of nasty stuff that I had to go through. And when I came back, I had time to think about it. Because when you're there, you don't really think about it.
Right.
It's funny, you do what you got to do, and then on the helicopter ride back, no one's talking. Like, everyone's quiet. On the way there, we're like, yeah, you know, all excited and stuff. And then on the way back, you're just completely just silent. And you don't talk about it. You get back and you take your rucksack off all your gear, and you put your fucking shorts, sorry for my language.
It's okay.
You put your shorts on and stuff, and you go to the gym and just pound it out, right? But when I left the Army, now I had time to actually like process a lot of this stuff, and it messed me up pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie. I became an alcoholic, and it got so bad to the point where I would have to like wake up and I'd have the shakes, and I had to take 2 shots of Jack Daniels before I brushed my teeth, just so I could, you know, get the edge off. And long story short, that happened for a couple months during those 3 months, 4 months that I was off. And I'll never forget, during Christmas, my family came from Mexico, from California, and we had Christmas at my mom's house. And one thing I promised her is that for a year when I got out of the Army, I was gonna stay at her house because I was her baby, right? When I got out, she didn't want me to get an apartment. She's like, move in back home. I need you home. Your brother's still here. So I moved home. And during that Christmas, I was such a complete ass clown, like fucking drunk, stumbling. I knocked down the Christmas tree. This is at 10:30 in the morning, bro. I'm like Frank the Tank out here. You know what I mean? And finally, my mom pulled me aside and was like, hey, this is not my son. I don't know who you are. You can't do this. Like, you're going to end up killing yourself. And I quit at that moment. I quit cold turkey, quit drinking for a while. for a good while. I went and saw the VA. The VA like put me on prescription for antidepressants and all this stuff, right? And I tried it for a good 3-4 days, and I did not like the way I felt. I wasn't Tino anymore. I had no personality. I was like dead inside. So after that, I started doing research online, like everybody else does, and I found what's called GABA. It's all natural. It helps with serotonin. It helps with anxiety. It's a natural remedy. So I started taking that, chewables. I went to Whole Foods, and I started taking that, and literally like in about a month and a half, my anxiety was like completely gone. And I was like, wow, thank God. Like, because who in here has ever had anxiety? It's the scariest shit in the world. It feels like somebody, like a sumo wrestler standing on your chest, and you feel like you're melting, like you're gonna die. And you don't know why or how you're gonna die, but you just feel like you're gonna die. I've been in a couple situations where I felt like I was gonna die because we're getting ambushed in Iraq, and I didn't even feel that bad when I was there. And my anxiety, my panic attacks were so bad. Like I would start sweating and I just start crying. It was crazy. But this GABA stuff changed my life, and to this day, I'm like, anybody that has anxiety, I'm like, dude, I highly recommend it. It's cheap. It's like $8. They make it in chewables. It's incredible. Long story short, me and my brother are chilling, and I'm like, I gotta get a fucking job. Like the money I had saved up from being a Call of Duty extra is gone. Like I gotta get a job. So my brother's like, hey dude, sign up for SWAT. My uncle's a DEA agent in LA.
Yep.
He's really well respected. He's a chief or something. And he's like, oh, come try out. You can you'll walk on. And so I went, and then we did a dry fire test, and like, dude, they're like, yeah, we'll offer you a job, like starting out, $120K with benefits, and you'll be at 180 in no time. And for me, when I was in the Army, I was making like 60 racks a year, and now I was like, hell yeah, I'm an E6 staff sergeant, young greenie beanie. You know what I'm saying? I thought I was the shit, and it was hard for me when I got out because nothing separated me from the guy that works at Best Buy who's 25 years old. So I started using my GI Bill because I didn't want to be part of that. I didn't want to have to shoot at anyone anymore or smell that smell of carbon. It was like ingrained in my nostrils, and I didn't want to do it anymore. So I passed on the SWAT thing, and I'm like, hey, nobody wants to get out of their comfort zone. That's why they can't get jobs, right? Everybody wants to know what they know, do what they do. Yep. And if anything that's uncomfortable or feels different, they're like, oh no. Yeah, for sure. So for me, I pulled out my iPad, and we're playing Call of Duty. This is like 2012, January 2012. Playing Call of Duty, we're drinking Mickey's Bombers because at that point I was broke. So I'm drinking Mickey's Bombers, eating bacon, and it was just ice cream, just being a loser, to be honest with you. But knowing that I had to do something, I picked up the iPad, went to Craigslist, back in the day when people used to get jobs on Craigslist. And the first one was like car sales. And it was like guaranteed $9,000 or $6,000. I was like, whoa, that can replace what I was making in the Army, right? At 1st and 15th, it was like clockwork. I got paid. Now it was like zero income, right? I still had the BMW. So I called, and I was able to talk to somebody and secured an interview. I was drunk as fuck when I did it. But anyway, long story short, I go to the interview. I talked to a guy. It's at Peoria Kia. It's like all older sales guys. They've all been there forever. But I talked to this first sales manager, and he kind of didn't really like me because I'm younger or whatever at the time. I was 25. And then he passed me on to another guy. And who knows who Andy Elliott is, right? Actually, he used to look like him. Many moons ago, like I was a car salesman, and I had like the tight shirts and tight pants. You could see my bulge and my nips. And shouts out to Andy Elliott. He's a beast. But I used to dress like him, look like him, and be like that, right? Like I just got out of the Army, right? So I was like, ooh, gung-ho and stuff. And the second manager that interviewed me was a veteran in the Marines. So he was like, hey, dude, I like this guy. Let's give him a shot. So he gave me a shot, and I'm like, hell yeah, $6,000 guaranteed. Well, it's $6,000 guaranteed over the course of 4 months. So $6K divided by 4 months. Yeah. I didn't know that, but they car guide me, you know what I'm saying? So they sleazy car guide me. But long story short, after the first month, I started looking into doing investment banking. So I applied to Chase, and Chase was like, yeah, you know, we'll bring you on, da 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 da. I did like 3 interviews with him. And long story short, I went to the GM's office at the car dealership my second month to quit. And the first month I only sold half a car because I did 1 car deal, but a guy who was already selling cars helped me. So we split the deal. So I didn't make any money. And I went in there to quit, and he's like, hey, dude, you have talent. You will be good at this if you really put both feet into it. Like, I can tell you're not giving it your all. There's no way in hell that 1% of the United States is in the Army and 1% of that 1% is a Green Beret. And there's no way that you can tell me right now that that was easy and this is harder than that. Wow. And he put that in perspective to me. His name was Michael Knapp. Never forget him. He's Japanese and white, but he's a fucking killer. Anyway, long story short, his brother was a Special Forces colonel. So he hopped on a call and like put us on a 3-way call, and he's like, hey man, just put your mind to it, da 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 da. And I was like, all right, cool, I'm sold. So I called Chase, and actually I didn't even call them, I ghosted them. I remember ghosting them. And then they were on me for a while, but long story short, I stayed in the car business. The very next month, I made $8,000, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. $8,000 from selling cars. And then the next month I made 12 grand. And then the next month it was like 14 grand. And then I got too excited, and then I went back to 4 grand. And I'll keep it a buck, right? Sales guys get complacent. Yep. They get excited. They want to spend their money before they get it. And I still wasn't that good at managing my money. I managed it enough because I had like a very scarce mindset, like super scarcity. I was like, man, I don't ever want to be broke again. I remember like trying to fix my BMW in my mom's garage. I couldn't, it was like a Torx thing, and I'm trying to fix it because the water pump is so expensive, and I was crying in my mom's garage. I'm 25 years old. I'm like, dude, I'm a fucking war veteran. I've done all this stuff. I have like the most amazing chest plate worth of medals and bronze stars and all this shit, and I can't even afford to fix my BMW, man. It like broke my heart, you know what I mean? But what it did make me realize is that material things are just that, material things. Yeah. So I ended up getting really good at sales and moving up, and sometimes in business or even in W-2 world, who in here has been at a job for a very long time and you started feeling like you're not appreciated? Anybody in here? A bunch of people, right? And then sometimes you're like, man, I want that promotion, but it's one of those things where they're like, you're doing really good in your current job. Mm-hmm. Then if we promote you, we got to train you. And then we miss out on that during that period of time. So one thing I learned is sometimes you got to quit to get promoted. Now what that means is you have to go in there and tell them you're going to quit because you want more. Now at that point, they're going to say, all right, we're going to promote you and we're going to train you and we're going to take care of you because we value you, or they're going to let you go.
Yeah.
So
it's funny you say that too, because actually every job I've ever had that I've ever quit, the minute I told them like, hey, I'm out of here, they start offering me, like, hey, well, what if we did this? What if we gave you these odds? What if we gave you this raise?
Right.
So it's one of those things.
Yeah.
They see the value, but they won't ever tell you.
They won't tell you.
You're complacent.
Yeah, because if I can take a girl to McDonald's every day and I don't have to take her to Mastro's and she don't ever complain, well, we're going to be on that dollar menu. You know what I'm saying? Right? So that's kind of the same deal. So long story short, I quit that and because I got headhunted by, it's crazy, like these car dealerships, like at a high level, have what they're called headhunters. They're recruiters, but they're like scouts. They literally go to different dealerships pretending to be customers, and then they seek talent. And then on the test drive, they tell you, "Hey, bro, how would you like to come to this group? And we can do this for you, this for you." And you're like on the test drive, like, "What the fuck is going on? You mean you're not buying this Sentra?" You know? So I got headhunted. And I went to the Van Tile Auto Group, which is now owned by Warren Buffett. They bought it, Berkshire Hathaway. And during that time, that's when I really got good at sales. I started recruiting a team, training a team, and I got my teeth kicked in multiple times. These are veneers, but the ones before them were kicked in big time.
Well, let me ask you this, actually.
Yeah.
Because your initial, when you started to make that like first 8,000, and like you had the 14,000, and like what had shifted? You had like your manager that told you, like, you're not working hard enough. What did you start doing there?
Honestly, and it's just going to sound stupid. So I dropped out of college. I was going to college to become a plastic surgeon. I totally jump around, but going back real quick, rewind. The reason why I got out is because I wanted to go to college to become a plastic surgeon. Yep. Reconstructive, not tits and nose. And during summer school is when I got the car job. because while you're going to school, the Army pays you. Like you get paid your GI Bill, right? So then the GI Bill ran out, and the GI Bill at the time was like $1,900. I went from making $6,000 to $1,900. So it was hard to keep up with my little bills and shit. And that's when I got, during the summer school, I was getting paid a little bit, like you drop it down to $800, and then I was getting the car business. But what really changed when I had that conversation with him, the only difference is that he told me this. He said, pretend that if you don't get a car deal, that your family is gonna die. As crazy as that sounds, I remember him telling me that, and that shit was like, oh my God. Like, cause for me, like, I haven't been in that situation where my family was gonna die, but I've been in a situation where there was like imminent danger, where people were dying, and it made me think like, dude, under any circumstance, like it doesn't matter, right? It's like fight or flight. So I just said, all right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be all in. I'm gonna put both feet in, and I'm gonna give it my all. And literally, like it just turned on, like the switch turned on. And honestly, I paid this guy. His name is Dominic DeMarini. So I don't even know if he's still in the car biz or around, bro. He is the epitome of what you think of an old school car guy. Like had red suspenders with a flower and shit. Like his mustache was like this, you know. And I paid from my from that first check. After that, I paid $1,500, I think it was, and he did like in-depth sales training.
Yep.
Like this is what you can do. It was the first guru. I didn't even know it was a guru, but you know, it was my first guru in encounter. And I paid the money for my check. They AR'd it, so it was cool because I didn't have to come out of pocket theoretically, but they took it out later. But that honestly, the training and guidance from somebody that had already done it just completely shifted my mindset. That like, hey, dude, well, if this old guy can do it, I'm pretty sure I can do it.
Yeah.
And that's when it just started snowballing. So I go to this other dealership, and now I'm an ASM, assistant sales manager, where I start hiring a team, building a team, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna get you to make $7K a month. And the dude was like, whoa, what do you mean? I've only been making like 3. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Forget all that shit. I'm gonna teach you how to do it. So then I just started teaching my salespeople, and the first month we went in there and we beat the other teams, and then I just started building up. And long before I knew it, about a year and a half into the car business, almost 2 years, I got into finance, which is like, all right, you go from topping out at a certain amount of like, let's say 10 to 12K busting your ass, working 80-hour weeks and shit, to, okay, now you can make $40,000 a month, like that. So my life changed, and I found out I'm having a daughter at the same day I found out that I was going to finance school. So it changed my whole perspective.
And let me ask you this question. So when you got that advice, first off, to think like, yo, if you don't make this deal, you're going to, like, your family's going to die, which, by the way, I love. One of my best buds, Alejandro Alvarez, this is what we talk about when we're like, hey, we need to get a deal, and anytime either like a seller is wasting our time or someone else is coming in, bad partner, whatever the case is, we actually envision somebody stepping on the throats of our family members and us wasting time.
It's crazy how it changes things, though.
It changes everything. We raise the necessity around the behavior that we need to be implemented.
Absolutely.
When you started training your team and you start first, like you get headhunted, you start building a sales team under you, were you giving them that same advice, or were you just going directly to sales training? Like, hey, maybe I don't need to tell them that they're about to die.
So I didn't tell them about the family dying thing because they just weren't. I don't think they were there yet. They were like Greenpeace.
So
me hearing it from him is I really respected Mr. Knapp and his brother. He's a colonel in the Army. Like to me, that's like it's a big deal. A Green Beret colonel, like it's not like a normal thing. So you know, with the salespeople though, I was doing like powwows, which has helped me huge in consulting and real estate as well. We would have 2 hourly KPI checks. Like every 2 hours we would meet up, and I would print out their calls, and we would all stand just like this, and I would be like, hey, Marlon, it looks like you did 15 calls in the last 2 hours, this much talk time, how many you got 0 appointments, what happened, who did you talk to, what did they say, where's yours, and then next person, hey, little Johnny, you got 20 calls, good job, talked to 2 people, set 1 appointment, great job, okay. You got 3 calls. What the fuck's been going on the last 2 hours, right? So like the accountability that I learned in the Army really helped me in the car business. And so now it's like everything was like, to me, was numbers. It's all numbers, right? It's all numbers. In the Army, we have a saying that they don't care how the chicken gets fucked as long as it gets fucked, right? Meaning, if they tell you the end goal, they don't care how you do it as long as you do it.
Yep.
Now, whether you got to blow up with Simtech on the side of the wall, or you have to go through a window, or you have to just, go through the front door and flash that bitch, they don't care what happens as long as you toe tag and zip tie the rest, right? So that when I was in the car business, I just kind of use that mentality. Like, I know that I have to sell X amount of cars. Each salesperson will do this. I know this guy's good for this. I know this guy's good for this. This is kind of like the average. I know what kind of revenue that's going to produce for each individual. I know what that's going to produce for me. So I just would back my way into it, because then I would start looking at the KPIs. Like, it takes this many calls to make an appointment. And we all know that an appointment is a 50% chance of showing. And then you have a 50% chance of closing. So then I just back my way into how I wanted to do it, right? So as I wanted to make more money, I would just hire more people. And then I would train those people better so that they would make more money, and then I would make more money. Long story short, I topped out at about $400K a year in the car business. And while I was in finance school, I met this guy, Tony Hilger. Shouts out to you. Love you, man. He, at the end of the class in Dallas for finance school, he had a laminated piece of paper with a QR code on it and a bunch of letters. And it had like a little B on it, right? And he's like, this is the future. It's untraceable. You're the bank. You can buy drugs. You can buy citizenship. You can buy rhino horn, gems, blood diamonds, whatever you want with it. And I'm like, wow, well, I don't want none of that shit, But he's like, if you're interested in investing in this and you want to talk more about this, meet me in the lobby bar at 8. At this point, I was broke. Not broke, but, I was like a single family income. Just found out my daughter was going to be born. And I had a scarcity mindset. I would save every dollar. Every dollar I got.
There, yep.
All my friends would go out and they're like, dude, you're making like 15 grand a month. Why aren't you coming out? I'm like, nah, bro, I don't need to go out. I don't need to do that. I don't need to buy that.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, broke is, because I love it. Like, because you
subjective.
said making $400K a year, like making $15K a month. Like, a lot of people are like, bro, that's broke is I'm at home trying to like scrape together pennies to get a bus. And ultimately, we start to realize broke isn't about how much money you're making. It's a mindset.
It's your mindset.
It
100%.
truly is. Like a person could be making $1 million a year, but if they're living paycheck to paycheck and they're afraid to make that spend, they're afraid to swipe that card, that's broke.
It is broke, 100%. So I didn't learn that yet. I just remember crying in my mom's garage when my BMW needed a new fucking water pump, So I'm like, never again will I have that feeling in my life. I'll never have that feeling in my life. So I would just save every penny. And at that time, when I had probably a good, I want to say $100,000, $120,000 saved up, right? And we got married. Me and my wife got married at that time, and we were super frugal on the wedding. And I was in finance school, and I knew that every dollar that I made, a dollar earned is a dollar made, right? And then you have to dollar saved. Nobody cares how much you make; they care how much you save. Like, that was my mentality. My mom, I come from a Mexican family, and they're always like, "Hey, don't use credit cards. Credit cards are bad, right? It's bad. It's evil. Save your money, mijo." She didn't like that I was in sales because, one day you could be eating a steak dinner and the next day it's hot dogs. It fluctuates, right? But that's a scarcity mentality when you don't believe in yourself, when you don't bet on yourself, when you don't try to level up your own, that's a skill issue, I like to say. And it all starts here, right? So I invested in Bitcoin early when it was like $496 a Bitcoin. And this was in 2014 in the lobby bar. I remember everyone went out to eat steak dinner, and I ordered Domino's to the hotel at the Omni Hotel in Dallas. And I ate Domino's and shit and had an old fashioned. And he taught me about Bitcoin. I still didn't understand it, but I bought like a couple grand. I bought like 4.33 Bitcoin, which is not a lot of money. It's like 20 something $100, right? Long story short, I get back. Then I forget about the Bitcoin. I start, start growing in finance. And I got promoted again. I was a sales manager in charge of all the sales guys. Got promoted again. And then before you know it, 2017 comes around. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to babysit these fucking salespeople because, the generation of salespeople that we have are not like me. And I would get really frustrated because they don't take shit seriously. It's just like, fun and games. Like most millennials don't care about money necessarily. They care about validation. They care about getting a pat on their back from their peers. So that was the hard thing. Like most people, I would be like, here, if you're top salesperson this month with a minimum of 20 cars, I'm going to buy you a Rolex. And like some of them the older guys would be like, yeah. The younger guys would be like, oh, okay, cool. But if I was like, or a $5,000, it's a Rolex or $5,000, your choice, right? Back then, watches weren't that expensive. Ooh, see the grays? Then millennials don't get excited by the $5,000. But if I did a PS5 spiff, everyone's like, oh my God, I'm gonna get this PS5, fucking $500, right? So it was just kind of backwards. So I wanted to go back into finance so I can just worry about myself and still make my 40K, right? So I started doing really good in finance, and that's when Bitcoin started going up. Mm-hmm. So I'd be in my office, and I still have the screenshots here. I'd be in my office, and during 2017, it would go up and down, and I would, when you buy a car, you go see the second guy, and the guy's telling you, oh, you need a warranty, oil changes. You're like, dude, it's a brand new car, And they're like, yeah, you never know what's going to happen to it, blah, 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 blah. That was me, right? But my portfolio, here's a screenshot at the time. It would be $429,000, and I had just lost $251,000 in 24 hours. So I was scared, It was like, I would literally get up and run to the bathroom to throw up while I had clients in my office. Because I would be like, oh my God, I just lost the house.
Yeah, you're riding a roller coaster right now.
Yeah, and then the next day would be to 700,000, and it just grew 309,000. So one day I'm sitting in my office, and here you can see it, Avondale, December 23rd, 2017. Oh wait, here, that's the wrong one. Here we go. Let me find it. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna find it right now. Here it is. June 7th, 2018. I'm sitting in my office in Avondale, and I have my bank account open. This is 9:14 p.m. on a Sunday, and I'm sitting there, and I'm still working. It's Sunday. I haven't seen my family for days because I leave really early and I get home really late. So my kids are asleep, my wife's asleep. When I leave, she's asleep when I get home. So it just kind of sucks, right? And I have my bank account open, and at the time I had $973,470 in my bank account, right? And I took this picture, and the very next day I was off, that Monday, Tuesday. On Monday morning, I went into to a dealership and I quit. I quit my job. I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I knew I could step on my dick and I'll be all right. I'll figure it out, right? With that kind of money, you can make something happen. And worst case scenario, I'll just go back to any popsicle stand on Camelback Road.
Well,
sell cars.
It's kind of funny though, right? And this is a mindset. I try to get people to understand. You are in a position where the amount of money. People are probably watching this right now, thinking he just said 400,000, 700,000, 900,000, close to $1 million. Why the hell is this dude worried about money? And
it's a scarcity mindset.
It's a scarcity mindset,
100%.
right? It doesn't matter how much money a person has.
It's never enough.
It's the relationship and the behavior with the money.
Absolutely.
That's more important than anything else. A person could have $1 in the bank and be wealthy compared to a person who has $1 million in the bank who's still living in poverty.
Absolutely. So at that time, I had almost probably 180K saved up on my own money, and then that hit, and then that's how I got that money, right? My account to that. And I quit, and I was like, my friends would come into sales guys that I would train, they'd come to my office for tips and shit, and they'd come in and they would see me trading and be like, dude, why the fuck are you sitting here? Why are you still here? But I don't know, I just didn't, not that I didn't believe in myself, but you don't know what you don't know, right? I never would have imagined that something like this would exist, a network of people that you could lean on, ask for business advice, family advice, relationship advice. Doesn't matter, right? This doesn't exist to me. I didn't even know that anything like this was real. I thought that everyone that drove a Lamborghini was a drug dealer, right? Straight off the rip, I thought you were a drug dealer or you got daddy's money or something happened like that, right? You're a trust fund baby. And it's just kind of my programming. My mom we would see a nice car, my mom would be like, drug dealer, like that. And I would be like, oh, damn. But I slowly started realizing that's bad to think that way.
Yeah.
You know, and like jealousy, envy, and hate are terrible emotions to be in. And when you project that, it just comes back to you. And the crazy thing is now, like, if I meet somebody and I know that they're doing better than me, or even if they're not doing better than me, I know there's something that they know that I can use. It doesn't matter in what capacity. I know that there's something that you can learn from every single person. So I started doing a lot of self-development at that time. Once I had the money and I'm like trying to figure out like what I'm going to do, I started reading books. I started like looking at podcasts. That's when I first discovered podcasts. And, you know, because all I would consume before was like Grant Cardone. That's it, because he was a car guy. You know?
Just sales.
Alan Ram and Grant Cardone, just sales guys. And I started realizing that, hey, dude, I'm not vibrating to my fullest potential. And I'm sure I never will, but I know that there's more, and I have to just keep leveling up. So that's when I started like my conquest to always be better. And after that, I wanted to get into real estate. I reached out to a couple of the gurus here in town, and I said, hey, look, I don't want to buy your course. I want to learn how to do it. Please don't send me an automated message. I want to meet with you, and I'll pay what I need to pay to figure it out. Like, I knew
you got to break that down, because you just said something that, like, I don't want to buy your course.
Yeah.
I want to learn how to do it. Like, because
Yeah.
there's a lot inside that statement.
Well, yeah, not that courses are bad, right? Because shit, I have a course, but they can only do so. Like, you can be doing a lot of things and think you're doing things and to progress, but you might be doing them wrong, right? There's only so much that watching modules can teach you.
Well, it's what you did with your sales guys, right? Where it's like you showed them what to do, you taught them what to do, but where the real magic came in was that accountability of, hey, every 2 hours line up, let's go through this, and you're getting that feedback.
That's what truly levels people up, right? So for me, it was like, okay, I reached out to TTP. Anybody in here know Brent Daniels? Shout out to Brent Daniels. And Carlos Reyes. Anybody know Carlos Reyes? Okay, cool. He's with All In. So I reached out to a couple of them, and I got an automated fucking email from TTP for a fucking course, right? I still got the email. He dropped a couple lines, and then it was just course link. I was like, God damn, man. And it's funny because I met him like a year later, and it was pretty cool. He's a cool guy. But Carlos didn't open my DMs. You know, it was just, it probably gotten requests. And so he would go live. I followed him. I had like 200 followers, and my shit was private. And I would go on his live. He would be on live, and he'd be like in his Rolls Royce. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, this dude's in a Rolls Royce. Like, what the fuck? And then he would just be talking stuff about sales. People would ask him sales questions on the live. And I would go on the comments, and I would answer the questions before he could say them. And then the people in the comments started following me, like requesting to follow me. And then they would ask him another question, and I would answer it before he could answer it. And he was like, hey, because my Instagram name was Patrick Bateman. You know, anybody knows that? Yeah, I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies in life. But that's what they used to call me. They used to call me the Psycho, American Psycho, because they'll be like, hey, did you take the plastics off your walls? Because I literally would, people would come in with like a $400 payment and leave with like a $750 payment once they saw me. So it was bad, right? I'm just really good at sales. But anyway, long story short, he was like, hey, Patrick, what do you do, brother? I sent you a DM. And then so we started talking in DMs. And then the next day, I went in for an interview with them. I met with him and Sal. Love you, Habibi. I went with him and Sal, and I sat in their office when they were at Copper Point, and Sal was like, hey, dude, I don't think that we can afford you based on what you've been making. I said, hey, dude, I'm cool with taking, one step back to take two forward. He didn't know that I had almost $1 million in my bank account at the time. Like, he didn't need to know that. But, I pulled up in my 2005 6 Series, and, Carlos was like, oh, Sal said, you would be good for business development because we have all these businesses and software companies. And Sal was like, but I just don't think we're there yet. And Carlos was like, no, dude, you're a killer. You're a sales guy. We need you to be a sales guy and run a sales team eventually and go from there. I'm like, all right, cool, we'll do that. So after about a month, I created like a business executive summary of what I was going to do for their businesses, and because that's what Sal wanted me to do. So I sent it to them. Carlos liked it. I don't even think Sal ever opened it to this day, but long story short, I got in there and I became an acquisitions manager. So who in here does real estate? All right, cool. So it's not foreign. I was an acquisitions manager. I had no formal training, just the car business training that I had. And my first 5 weeks, I did 33 deals.
Damn.
Yeah, so their organization went from doing 7 deals a month collectively to 40 something deals after I got there. And it was like, whoa, holy shit, we want you to do this, but teach other people. And do you have anybody you can bring on? So I brought my brother, made him quit that day, made him quit. He came in. And then this is where what goes to shit. My ex-wife, who I known since I was I want to say 8 years old, her dad had passed. She was adopted, and her dad had passed. We grew up on the same street. It's crazy. It's crazy. That's a whole nother story. But long story short, we were married. We had kids, and her dad died. She was adopted. Her adopted dad died. So she wanted to learn who her family was, her mom and dad. And she never met them. So I paid a private investigator because I got money now. Paid a private investigator. We found them, and he was in North Dakota. So I started flying her to North Dakota, right? That first month that I was grinding.
Yeah.
And then I find out that she started cheating on me with her stepbrother. Yeah, crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, real North Dakota type shit. Right? So I found that out on a Friday night. On Monday morning, I went to the courthouse and filed for divorce. I'm like, dude, I can't. Where I want to go, I don't, you can't go with me.
Yeah.
I can't have that, right? You're just not going with me. I don't know where I'm going, but you're not coming with me.
And
So,
and sometimes it's clear, right? You don't know where you're going. You don't know who you need
Right.
with you, but you know who can't come.
yes, I didn't know where I was going. I just know I was destined for more, right? So I filed for divorce, all that stuff. It was so embarrassing for me because I was that dude, right? All my friends and my circle of friends, I was that guy. I had the house, the kids, the dog, the pool with the waterfall. I had all that shit, right? I was the cool guy, dude. I had a projector playing Xbox, Madden, Wings. Everybody would come to my house and play beer pong. And when that happened, I kind of just, I got reclusive. I didn't want to be around anybody because I was embarrassed, right? So I took a month and a half off, and then I went to Carlos and Sal, and they're like, hey man, we missed you, bro. Because I tried to quit. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, just take some time off, whatever you need. And then after about 2 weeks, Carlos started calling me, hey, brother, I just wanted to check in on you. This shit is crazy, bro. And I love Carlos. He's a brother to me. He's a brother. We've been through a lot of good times and a lot of bad times together. But he reached out, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'll be ready next week. So I came back to the office, and I told those guys, I don't think this is going to work out for me because I don't want to do this shit no more. And I got to figure out my life. I was going to move to South America with my kids, get an expat nanny or something, and figure it out. Dude, I'm I got almost $1 million. I can figure it out. You know what I mean? Worst case scenario, I come back and I just go back to the car business. That's when strippers leave the strip club and they're like, I don't want to go back. That's my strip club, right? I know I could always go back and make money there, but that's worst case scenario. Yep. But shit, dude, 30, 40 racks a month is not a bad life, right? So long story short, my mom convinces me that my support system's here, for the kids, for me. And so I'm like, all right, I'll stay here. She moves to North Dakota. Now I'm a single dad trying to figure it out. I went from not really spending any time with my kids because I was always in the car business, and I didn't really do all the kids stuff. I would have 1 day off a week, if that. And that's the time we would spend with the kids. But I didn't do the dad shit. I'll say this. It's hard to look back now and realize that I wasn't the best father I could be, It's almost like it was an obligation more than a privilege to have kids and be a dad. So I realized, damn, this is hard. Taking and dropping off kids to babysitters, while grinding, while doing this, while doing that, asking my mom for help, which I don't like asking people for help. It was hard. And that's just a pride and ego thing that I had to overcome, right?
Yeah.
Pride and ego. And it's funny because they said, all right, well, we want you to do business development and yada, yada, yada. So I started doing that, and they're like, hey, we're going to throw an event, yada, yada, yada. And then I'm like, okay, so why don't you, they would pay tickets, people would pay to come to these events, right? And great real estate events, but there was no there was no upsells afterwards. There was no people would go, they would get the things, but just who in here has been to events, right? You go to events, you write down a bunch of shit, you learn a bunch of good stuff, right? But when you get home, you have that notebook and you're like, all right, you put it down, you're like, I'm gonna get to it Monday, right? And then Monday comes along, you're like, oh, fuck. And then you open the notebook, you start looking at the shit, and you're like, man, what was he talking about during this time? Or how do I make that work for me, right? And so at that point, there's nothing like having a mentor. I will say that. I've paid quite a bit to have a mentor. Last year, I think it was almost $100,000. And you have to realize that when you have a mentor, you're taking the elevator, not the stairs, right? Because they've been through it. They've gone through it. They know how to deal with it. When you think your world is falling down, they've already been there. They're like, dude, relax. It's not that serious. Yep. That's the power in having even a support system like this. But long story short, I'm like, hey, why don't you guys do this? Offer a mentorship program, da 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 da. So then they're like, all right, well, we're going to do this. We're going to start a program. And we started a program, and I started helping them with this, and I started helping them with the upsells and the events. So then before you know it, that company went to $11 million a year. Yeah, we got that company pretty big, and I was making good money, right? Making great money. And my brother was still an acquisitions manager, and I'm like, here, I need your help. So he came over, and we're making good money. Long story short, Carlos was going through some personal things, and I wasn't going to be able to have any events for a while, and that's all I got paid on. I was the only person in that whole building that didn't have a salary. I was just I've always been commission only, so I'm like, dude, I don't want a salary. How about you just pay me more commission, get rid of the salary? I'll figure it out, you know? And we had some disagreements, and I had to leave, right? I had to leave. Sometimes you got to quit to get promoted.
I love that.
And it all comes full circle. It was very scary, but I went from making good money to over 20xing. The first month I left, I was scared. I was really scared, you know? I was like, man, what am I going to do? I had all the money in the bank, but it was still, I'm in the same situation that I was when I got out of the car business, where I was just scared. But now this time I'm divorced. I started getting gray hairs in my beard, and I was out of shape. Well, I still am, but I got a personal trainer. I'm working on it, right? I started realizing that, fuck, I'm in no better place than it's just the same. But one thing that did change was my mindset and my knowledge. Now I know what was possible. I had been around rooms with top tier entrepreneurs for years. I convinced and helped hundreds of entrepreneurs to part with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of their hard-earned money to get them to the next level. And I realized that it's not necessarily how much something costs, but if it's an investment, there's an ROI with it. And people don't realize that. So once I left, I figured out what I needed to do, and that there was a demand for me in the marketplace, for events, for helping people, for this, for that. And sales training, for years I was kind of I wasn't able to do that stuff, right? I was only allowed to do what I was told I was allowed to do. There was boundaries. So I'm like, hey, dude, I'm a free agent. I'm an entrepreneur. I even posted myself with the famous Brady picture, and I put my face over his, holding the jersey, you know? And my very first month, I made $260,000. My very first month away by myself as a solopreneur. And I was like, wow. And that's net, no overhead, net. I'm talking about people paying for my flights, for my hotels, net. And I was like, holy shit.
And that was you stepping out, doing sales?
Doing sales training, consulting. People would fly me out to North Carolina, pay me $15,000 to be there for 4 days, and give me a Lambo to drive. Dude, I was like, what?
Yep.
Like little old me, it's imposter syndrome. It's imposter syndrome, people.
That's crazy, right? Because like you're talking about imposter syndrome, and this is after you've generated millions of dollars, right? Like you've generated, like you were responsible for the creation of all this new income, and it took you still going through that before you would finally step out on your own. Even then, still stepping out on your own, you're still scared. And like I want to highlight that because I think sometimes people, they would have probably been looking at what you were doing up until that point. Be like, yo, Tino's got it all figured out. Tino like is probably confident.
For sure.
And it's crazy because as a salesperson, you have to have confidence.
You do.
And you had confidence in one area, in one arena, and yet this other arena, there was still a dragon that needed to be slayed.
Oh yeah.
Like
it's completely the unknown, right? Like you don't know what's gonna happen, but I just know that whatever is gonna happen, I'm gonna make it happen.
Yep.
I'm not gonna wait to find out what happens. And that first month I made 260. And then the second month I made over 300K. And then the third month I made like, I think it was like 240 or 220, something like that. But nonetheless, it was a shit ton of money. And I started realizing, hey man, this is not as bad as it's not as bad as you think it is, really. And at the time, like to this day, I still don't have like high bills. Like my bills are what I like to call my nut is really low, like compared to what I make. So a lot of my friends, like their expenses are like 110 grand. I got another friend who's $132,000 per month. Imagine the stress of knowing that you are not making a fucking dollar until you cover $132,000 per month.
that's a lot.
Bro, I'd be like, I'd be back on those GABA pills, the GABA chewables, you know what I mean? So for me, it's like, dude, I just increased my nut by quite a bit, and it's the Lamborghini that's outside. And even then, like my bills all in, everything, I'm still like under 10 grand a month. Like, and bro, that's nothing compared to what I'm making. But I still have a tiny bit of imposter syndrome where I'm like, you know what? And I'm part of another mastermind that I sat in recently. Shouts out to Elijah and Vic Heredia. I was in that room and I was talking about like still trying to figure out, because I've only been a solopreneur since November of 2021. Starting to figure out like, how do I grow a team, which I've done multiple times, but do I need a team, right? Do I need to spend all this overhead? Do I need to be doing all this X, Y, Z, right? And he's like, dude, it's crazy to hear that you having imposter syndrome and you wearing $100,000 watch. He could not believe it, but he's known me since 2019. And I'm like, dude, I always just felt secure in my bubble. And he gave me some good advice. Thank you, Vic. And you know, it's a constant evolution. So at any point in your journey, don't think that you've learned it all or you've arrived, because you're constantly learning. And I'm still to this day, like, I'm amazed. Like on the way here, we locked up a client where we're doing a partnership with them at a 60-40 split for our production company, and then another one for 5K. And I was like, bro, that's so crazy. And he's like, yeah, dude, this is crazy. I'm like, I still get excited. I get excited at the 5K rips. I get excited at the 50K rips. Like, it's still exciting, right? But at no point am I like jaded by it or take it for granted. I'm super grateful. And, you know, here, let me get back to the fucking line, right? So I left that and I started a consulting firm with my brother, and it's that goes pretty good. We trained a bunch of people. We offer mentorship programs and mainly sales training, because that's what we like to do. We help people scale their real estate businesses. And then I led into other things. Then it led into, you know, everyone in here who's heard of cold callers, right? Everyone's had cold callers, so yeah, right? So everyone in the real estate industry just kind of white labels these cold callers, whether they're from Mexico, Costa Rica, Egypt, or the Philippines, and they're like, yeah, $6, they're trained by me, they're the best, right? Like everybody does that, and then they make a spread from $4 to $6 every month. It's residual passive income. I've done it before, but then I started realizing, like, why am I competing with all these other gurus and people that are just, you know, arbitraging? I like to call it, I hate to call it, but it's like you're a call pimp, you know? You're like pimping these people out.
That's literally what it
They're
is.
getting paid $1.50 an hour. You're getting charged $4 an hour, and you're selling for $6 an hour. Long story short, I was doing that, and I was making good money. It's passive, it was good. Like every month, like great money, you know, good stream of income. And then I got in contact with my old partner, actually my old boss, Justin. He reached out. He's like, "Hey, dude, what the hell? What are you doing?" Da, 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 da. He's like, "Man, you fucking." I used to be a finance manager for him, and he was the general manager of the store, and he was a managing partner, meaning he like part owner of it. So he was like, "Dude, what the hell? Like, when did you get out of the car business?" I told him what happened. He's like, "Dude, you blown up, yada yada." He just goes on my social media, right? And then, long story short, I'm like, he's like, I started a solar company. I want you to be part of it. I want you to partner up with me. So I talked to my mentor about it, and he's like, "Well, how do you feel?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't really, I know this guy, but I don't know him. We lost contact for like a good 8-10 years.
Yeah.
So I don't really know him." And when you partner with somebody, you're basically married to them, right? You're married. You're in bed with them, like for real, for real. That's the way I look at partners. So I kind of passed on it. My mentor was like, "No, maybe not." And so I passed on it, right? Then 6 months later, he's like, "Business is booming, da 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 da. Let's do it together." I'm like, "All right, we'll try it out." And solar thing went pretty good. Fulfillment on his end wasn't as great as we both had agreed to, so I stopped doing that. But then he asked me for callers. Like, I need cold callers during the solar thing, right? So all I did was like, hey, because I was like, you need to do cold calling, SMS blast, da da da. Basically everything that we learned in the real estate business,
Yep.
Right? Just plug and play to any business.
Yeah, it all applies.
He did it to that business, and it just absolutely blew up, right? And it gave him the idea. He was like, "Hey, dude, why are you doing this for real estate people? Like, we were both in the car business. We were both respected, very successful in the car business. Why don't we do this in the car business?" And I'm like, "Is there anything like this?" And it's funny. We started like shopping it around, and we got a couple clients based on just our reputation, people we knew, and we started charging people to do their BDC for them, the Business Development Center, creating leads for the salespeople and stuff like that, which nobody in real estate does because they're all wholesalers and they're all like, "Yeah, I'm a one-trick pony," you know. So not to knock anybody, but I consider myself an entrepreneur, not a wholesaler.
Yep.
Right. Wholesaling is just one
vehicle.
Yeah, it's one of the arrows in my quiver. That's it, right? So I started getting clients, and now we got clients that some of them pay us 10 grand a month, some pay 16 grand a month, and it's like clockwork. And then we spent like 32 grand on the software that allows one caller to be able to be in charge of 8 dealerships. So my cost went from like $1,800 a month all in to $600 per dealership, or per 8 dealerships. And it's that business has been, oh my God. Thank you.
Isn't it kind of funny
Crazy.
too how like the best businesses that you create are the ones that are solving the challenge in your own endeavor? Like you
Right.
figure out how to grow your own business, grow your own self,
Yeah.
take care of your own problems, and then you realize, if this was a
We might be
solution
onto
for
something,
me,
yeah.
how many other people need the same solution? Sometimes I think people look for like, hey, what's the solution for people? It's like, well, what problem are you experiencing?
Yep.
Solve your own problem, and then it puts you as an authority to solve other people's problems.
So my partner, my buddy, had 3 Honda dealerships in California and San Miguel. So he ended up getting rid of them, selling them, cashed out big time. And he's like, "Bro, let's just go into this, and we're entrepreneurs now." He's like, "Thank you for opening my eyes that there's more to the car business than the car business." So he got out, and he was a way higher level guy than I was, right? He was in the car business for over 20 years, youngest owner of a dealership in that organization owned by Warren Buffett. So long story short, we partnered up on that, and since then, I started a nootropic company recently. Who's ever heard of the movie Limitless? You seen that? Takes a clear pill, and he's like a genius, right? So Joe Rogan has Alpha Brain. You heard of that, right? On it, right? Mm-hmm. So we created our own. It's called Infinity by Limitless Nootropic, and we recently released that, and I'm trying to get it into Walmart and Target. It's going pretty good just from my social media, from selling it there. But it's giving me the opportunity to just try other things.
Yep.
Me and him started a production company. He's my partner. Shout out to James. And he started off as my camera guy. I was paying him to follow me around all fucking day and do YouTube videos of me making quesadillas and fucking around with my dog and doing dumb shit, right? And now we're partners, 50-50, not like, 80-20, like 50-50. So my philosophy is like partnering up with good operators and owning a small piece of a lot of pies, right? I don't have to be the big man on campus. I just have to partner up with good people that I know I can bring value and they're gonna bring value. And here's one thing that I learned. Here's one thing I learned in this whole process, because I've kissed a lot of frogs before I got a prince, if you know what I mean. It's called partnering up for a reason, okay? You partner up. I see a lot of people that are friends, and then I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh yeah, we partnered up, we're wholesalers, da da da. I'm like, all right, so what do you do? I do, and then what do you do? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm the partner. I'm like, okay, so what do you do? Like, what is your role? And then you start to realize, like, whoa, this guy's he's not doing shit. And then this guy, he's your partner. Oh, yeah, he's been my friend. I've known him since I was in elementary school. Okay, cool. So you're in? Yeah, I'm partner. Oh, okay, so what do you do? Oh, yeah, I just kind of help out with the CRM and stuff. I'm like, all right, cool. For the 0 deals you guys are doing. So you start to realize that when you partner up with somebody, you should partner up. And like I said, when you partner with somebody, it's a marriage, right? You can have operating agreements that are short-term partnerships and long-term partnerships, but you should always make sure that when you're partnering with somebody that they're bringing something to the table. It's like a marriage, it really is.
Tino, let's talk about that for a second, because I think that's one of the most common issues I come to when people reach out to me. They're asking for help and they're telling me and my partner, and just like you, I ask them, what does your partner do? And oftentimes I find partners that have the exact same personality types, the exact same skill traits.
There's no yin yang.
Exactly. So when you're looking for partners, because you leverage partnerships very strategically, what are some of the things that you do to vet, hey, this will be a good partnership? And is it always that, sometimes I want to kind of preface it with this, that people might be good friends, but terrible partners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for me, I look at work ethic, right? Their work ethic, what type of people they are. Do they, I'm not gonna lie, I fuck around a lot. I play at least 3 hours of video games with my friends every single day. Like, this is facts. I play Call of Duty. We play fucking all types of shit. I have a sim racer with motors and everything, right? I play video games. It's like my escape. But that's not all I do, right? Like, I work hard. I work smarter and not harder so that I can work the least amount of time. I look at people that that are in that same kind of mindset where it's like, hey, how can we bust out as much as possible in a short amount of time and make shit happen? And I got to be able to depend on that person, just like they should be able to depend on me, right? Some partnerships happen, like the nootropic company. I partnered up with somebody, and great friend, but I've already had to fuck them up already. Because shipments haven't gone out on time, and I'm like, hey, dude, we don't do that. Like, that's not how I operate, right? And you partnered with me, you partnered up with me because of my social media presence, my network, getting us into these 30 gyms in California, doing this, doing that. Like, the reason why I have that is because of the shit I've done, right? And how I carry myself and what my standard is. So if you can't hold up to that standard or even greater, then we're gonna have a problem.
And so I love that. You never let your standards waver based on the partnership, based on their feelings, based on whatever might be going on in their life. Like, you might feel for them, but if they come to you and say hey, my wife's upset with me for working too late or you don't let that say, hey, let's lower the standard. Let's bring the notches down so that you can keep up. This is where the level is, and you either come or surpass.
Absolutely. So I'm a huge believer in setting milestones, goals, and realistic goals. Like, I've met people that are like, oh, I'm going to make $1 million this year. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what's the most you made in a month? And they're like, $15,000. I'm like, dude, how the fuck are you going to make $1 million this year? Like, how? Just because I'm speaking it into existence. Look, I'm a big mindset guy, right? I will say that. I don't really post about it because sometimes I feel like people just kind of lean on that and use that as a crutch. But you have to have realistic goals and a way to get to the goal. So like whenever I'm mapping out somebody's real estate business, right? Like if I know their KPIs of how much their marketing dollars go out, how much come back in, then I look at the salesman's KPIs, and then I know, okay, like if the sales guy's like, oh, I'm gonna make 20K this month. All right, how are you gonna make 20K? What's your average assignment? You get paid 10%. Okay, cool. So your average assignment is what? How are you gonna make sure that you hit X amount of deals that is needed to hit that 20K? Okay, well, I'm gonna make this many phone calls and this many offers per day and this many blah, 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 blah. So you back your way into it. I get a calendar. I say by this week, you should have this many deals. By this Friday, you should have this many deals. Now, if you don't have this many deals here, then you gotta make up for it right here. And I don't give a fuck if that means you have to come in early or leave late or make more calls or skip your lunch. As somebody who doesn't care how the chicken gets fucked, as long as the chicken gets fucked, you have to make it happen. So that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand. They're just like, oh, I'm just gonna try harder. Well, if you're trying a certain way and it's not working for you, what do you think is gonna happen? Just because you speak some affirmations into a fucking mirror at 6 in the morning while you're naked doesn't mean that you're gonna be a millionaire. And it starts here 100%, right? It starts here, but it has to come out as well. It starts here, it comes, but it has to come out in your actions. Now, you just like I said earlier, you can be doing a lot, but it could be a lot of the wrong thing.
Yep.
And when you're doing a lot of the wrong thing, it's just busy work. It's not productive. It's not money-making activities. So for me, I look at what is a money-making activity and how that person is actually going to execute on those. So a partnership, I've had some partners that I just shake hands and it's just kind of hastily because I'm like, oh, we're gonna make a bunch of fucking money, and I learned from that there's a whole lot more that goes into that. So that's why I like to do like operational agreements that are time or revenue based. Like, hey, let's do like a 6-month partnership and then we'll see how it goes. You know, it's like we're going through marriage counseling for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we'll see if we're gonna tie the knot.
That's huge. Know? So like setting an agreement that, hey, if we can't make X amount of dollars up until this point, we're basically going to amicably part ways at that point in time, or we'll reassess what this relationship looks like.
Absolutely. Because most of the times people, bro, all fucking day, people come up to me with like, hey, in my DMs, hey, dude, I got an idea for you, Shark, or like, da-da-da, can you partner up with me on my roofing business? Da-da-da. I don't know shit about roofing, right? I can help you with business, sales and marketing. That's all they all are, right? But I don't know you like that. And of course you want to partner up with me, because if your shit was working, you wouldn't be looking to partner up with me. Right? That's my first thought. Then it's like, okay, what are you gonna bring to the table besides just hard labor, right? So I need to figure out like what it is that you're gonna do. You're in an operational agreement. That's why when people are like, oh, we're partners. Do you guys have an operational agreement? No. All right, you guys are just friends. you guys are just friends, you know? You have to have deals together. Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But that's just, you're making money, but you're not going to live to the fullest of your potential in your business because you don't have anything outlined with not requirements, expectations, mutually agreed expectations of, hey, bro, you're going to be in charge of this, this, this. I'm going to take care of this, this, this. Fair enough? Sound good? Cool. Let's sign on dotted lines.
So I love that. So if people are looking at partnerships, it's like you guys really need to be sitting down and thinking about what are the expectations that I'm going to be able to hold the next person to? What's the standard that I'm going to be able to hold them to? And if you're not comfortable having that kind of conversation on the front end, it's not a partnership. It's not a relationship that you should ever begin. And if you're both bringing the same skills to the table. And what I like is, and I want to ask you this, and I want to ask you like one more question, which is within the partnerships that you come into, right? You just said you're looking for an operational partner.
Yep.
Right? So they bring the other side of the table. Like you're not saying like, hey, I'm going to get into roofing. Time for me to learn everything about roofing. Right. It's expected that your partner did to learn everything about roofing.
Absolutely.
You did the sales. Like you have your trick. You have your niche. You have your, hey, I'm good at this. I'm going to continue to get great and be better and better and better at this thing. So although you're doing many things, you're doing one thing in many places.
Bingo. That's what a lot of people don't understand. You don't have to be good at everything. You just have to be good at a certain thing where people see the extreme amounts of value that you bring, and you just plug and play. I look at it like a plant, right? Your business is a plant. Whatever you do, you start watering it, it starts growing, it starts growing, it starts growing. Now, you grew this beautiful plant and you're like, wow, it's so beautiful. I wish I could do it again in another business. Well, you can. Just fucking do the same thing in another plant, and then you pot it and you just start it and then add some more fucking soil and new seeds and do the same thing. Now, if I can do the same thing in a bunch of businesses where I'm co-owner and these are businesses, they're not like, you know, it's not just an LLC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I own fucking 45 businesses and da 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 da. I'm like, okay, yeah, you drive a $40,000 car. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying, like I see it, right? Like if you have 40 businesses that aren't producing X amount of dollars, then just fucking shed the fat, like, you know, trim the fat and focus on
Just
what.
the one,
Yeah,
yeah.
dude, get that one up. So for me, like, I've always been good at kind of like juggling, but sometimes I get kind of spread too thin, and I realize, hey, dude, if I didn't have this project, because I call businesses projects until they're fucking like moving, you know what I mean? Like moving. It's not a business to me, right? Until it's making real good money every single month. So I call them projects, and if this project is not doing it, then I'm just gonna take a break from that. And I'm going to focus on these ones until these are good and they're delegated and they're kind of hands off. Then I can move to this one. So the car dealership one, we had to hire a guy out of San Diego who handles it for us. Like, he's like, I'm the CEO. He's the sales director. So he's like kind of the liaison. Anything when it comes to closing and signing these people up, that's me on the call, Zoom with them, or handling any financials. But besides that, like, I don't have to worry about that. I know that shit is running day and night.
Operations totally offloaded to your partners.
Yeah, and he's bringing more clients, and then I just wrap them up, put a bow on them, and send them off. And that's the beauty of it. Once you get to a certain, and you can train somebody, right? They're never going to be as good as you when you start to scale your business. You might get to 80% of your capacity, which is good, of your capability, but you'll never have that 100%.
Yep.
But until you can kind of let go of that being a control freak, because as entrepreneurs, we're all a little bit control freaks, right? But once you let go of it, that's when the magic starts to happen. But you have to get to that point, right? A lot of people want to hire people right away and do all this shit, and like, oh yeah, I have an operations manager, got this manager, da, da, da. And then at the end of the month, you're making 100 grand, but you're only netting yourself like 15, 20. And at that point, it's like, why do you want to do that? Like, that's too much stress. Because I think of employees, when you have employees, their families. Like, you have a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of responsibility with having employees. Like, even VAs. Like, think about it, especially VAs. Like, they live in third world countries, and we're paying them X amount of dollars, and that's life-changing money for them, right? Their moms are eating off that. Their kids are eating. Their cousins. They're putting a fucking roof on their goddamn hut, right? So then, you have to think of that. Like, when you can't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna cut it off. I'll figure it out later. I'll come back to it later. No, dude, you're affecting a lot of people. So when I scale a business, I try to not hire people until I absolutely have to. Because with me, most of the business I have, like if I don't have the, plus it's like no overhead, no one's worried about, oh, why is Tino rolling around in a Huracan, or, you know, an Evo, and why does this guy have a $100,000 watch on? How come he's on vacation? How come he doesn't work Fridays? Right? They're seeing me on Instagram and shit doing my thing. Yeah, Fiance Fridays, yeah. So like you start to deal with that, and it's like and here's another thing. I'm gonna go on a tangent again. Like, if you guys hire somebody or get employees or anything like that, like, never, ever, ever hold them back. Right? Always be transparent with them. And have real life goals. Ask them where they see themselves in a perfect world. What do they want to achieve while they're with you and after you? And throw it out there like you assume they're leaving, and see what they have to say. Some of them might be like, no, dude, I want to rock with you forever, you know?
You know what's funny? When you do that, you end up keeping them forever.
Yeah.
Because I did that with some of my very first VAs, and I mean, the loyalty.
They'll run through walls for you.
Out the roof. And she was just like, I've never.
Yeah, she's probably blown away.
In
like,
the
what
beginning,
the hell?
she put me on those. She said, like, the very first day she wanted to come on, she was like, I don't know if I can do that pay. Like, I was getting this much more over here.
Yeah.
But I learned a lesson from my time as a W-2 employee. There's more than one way to pay a person.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't just pay them in currency. You
can
don't
treat
just
them
pay them
right.
in dollars. You treat them right. You give them the opportunity to grow. You ask them, you give them personal development.
Absolutely.
And they will stick with you forever.
Absolutely. So that's paramount when you're building a team or growing a business is treating people right and finding their goals and aspirations, right? Not everyone wants to help you just grow yours, right? And you think about that, like I've heard this a billion times. They're like, oh yeah, 9 to 5, you're working for somebody else's dream, and you know, whatever, 6 to 12, you're working on your dream. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that, dude. Like, this dude was working for me for years. Now he's working with me. Like, with me. He's my fucking road dog. He's my best friend, bro. He knows more about me than probably anyone. Like, he spends more time with me than my fiance does, than my kids do. He's riding passenger seat with me, the fucking Lamborghini on the freeway. We're always together. I talk to him when shit's not good. I talk to him when shit's great. Like, there's all types of things. But it starts with having those hard conversations, and you have to have them, whether it's in any capacity, whether it's business, relationships, friendships. Like, you're not my real friend if you're not telling me I'm fucking up. You know what I mean? If you're not telling me like, hey dude, like you're falling off or you ain't doing this, like you're not my real friend, you know? It's that simple. And you don't have to be a dick about it, but like friends have to be able to tell you like, hey dude, like we need to, you know? It's that simple. And sometimes I get sidetracked in a bunch of the other businesses I have, and he's still grinding along in his business that we have together, and I'm like, oh fuck, I need to pick it up, right?
Rope you back in. Like good friends like are willing to have those tough conversations and say the things that they see, that they know. You know, like this is something like Daryl and I have talked about. You know, like one day I actually sat down and I apologized to him. I was like, yo, I'm sorry. He was like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, I've seen you drop the ball in a few areas of your life, and I didn't say anything. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not being a good friend. And vice versa. He calls me out on the same thing. He'd be like, yo, what happened? You said you were going to wake up. You said you were going to go for a run. You said you were going to make the calls. You said you were going to do this.
Bro, you can't buy that kind of friendship. That is accountability and real life friendship at its best. Like, dude, that's it, and it's no egos, right? Like, some people, you try to hold them accountable, and they're like, nah, fuck you, right? Then, you know, those aren't the type of friends that you want to hang out with. But you start, you know, you say your vibe attracts your tribe, and that shit is 100% true. Like, you start to realize, like, who you have in the room, who you're hanging out with, who are the people that are with you today, and that if those people are actually going to be with you later on down the road, right? So, like, for me, I'm a guy who, I always tell my friends, like, we'll go out, we go on vacation together, right? I have a core group of friends that they're all walks of life, and I always tell them, like, hey, man, it's not fun being rich if, like, your friends aren't rich. It's not fun, like, being able to do all this stuff if, you know, you always have to pay for everybody. It's not because you have to pay for them, but it's not fun because whenever I go somewhere like on vacation or something, I like to pay for whoever's with me, right? Or anything, when I go out to lunch or whatever, just because I don't want to have anybody even think about that. Like, I want them to have a good time, live in the moment, be present. And then I started realizing I shouldn't be paying for everybody all the time. Well, like, I'm being a bad friend. Why don't I put them in a position to win with me? And if they're good people and their ethics are there and we align on everything, then let's partner up. And here's a prime example. So now he's making money with me, not from me, because I'm paying him as an employee, like a contractor. But now we're partners, and it's a good feeling, because now it's like, dude, I want to do something. I'm like, hey, we should do this. And he's like, all right, cool, let's do it.
That's cool. Make money with me, not from me.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's funny, like the friends I go to dinner with, like we fight to like see who's gonna pay. Like Linda caught on, like we went out to lunch and like she like started realizing like I was like sneaking my credit card in before like the bill even came. And the last time we went out to brunch, she already like snuck out her credit card. I'm like, wait, where's the receipt at? She's like, I already got it, dude.
I already took care of it.
Damn, like she's learning.
And it's really the little things that you start to realize is that like it all kind of amounts, right? And a lot of people. So I used to be against the mindset thing. I will say this: I was against the mindset. I'll admit it, just because I always thought that like it was fluff. I always thought it was fluff. That I'm like, dude, how is that gonna help me make money today? Like my cell phone bill is still due next week, right? Like I'm not just gonna like it's not gonna happen, right? Like it's not gonna get paid. But then I started realizing that if you don't have this right, you can't do the real world's bright. And I started realizing that I do have I do say affirmations to myself. I do every day. I say them to my kids, right? But I didn't know they were affirmations. I didn't know that what I was doing was trying to prepare myself for the day. I just thought I was just trying to like slap the bitch out of myself mentally, right? But you realize that stuff is absolutely important, and it's the foundation to everything you do. Like, even if my significant other, we're having disagreements and stuff, I'm like, hey, dude, like, don't be negative. Don't be half glass empty. Like, it's half glass full. Yeah. You know? And she'll be like, yeah, you're right. You're right. And I sometimes have to tell myself, like, that's, my brother's like, dude, how are you always so cool? Like, you don't ever lose your shit. I'm like, dude, what's the worst that can happen, bro? Like, I've been in bombed out buildings in Iraq, like, terrified I'm gonna die. You think that some fucking chargeback or something happening is like gonna ruin my life? No, man, come on. These are all temporary problems, and they're not even problems once you find a solution for them.
So let me ask you this, right? And these are like my two final questions here for you. The first one...
I talk a lot, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, dude, I love it, right? The first one is this. If you had the opportunity to sit on a park bench with like 20-year-old Tino, right? And you got maybe, let's say in 30 minutes to really sit down and talk to him, give him some wisdom, right? What is it that you would want to let him know? Like, what would you be trying to talk to him about in those 30 minutes?
I would let him know that he's enough, you know, that he should be grateful for who he is, for his life, for every breath he can take, and that he's enough, that he doesn't need exterior validation, physical things, stupid acceptance from people, and that you know, life happens fast. Whether it's good or bad, it happens really fast. And after 25, I started losing. You're gonna lose your hair, so enjoy it while you're there, and just work hard, be good to people, and just always be positive. Always be positive with the intent of being better. And I think that's it. That's what I would tell. Because if I had that when I was 20 years old, I know I'd be like way further in life. And it took me a long time to realize that being a good person is better than anything in the world. I was a bad person. I used to cheat on my ex-wife all the time. This is the first time I talk about this. I used to be a really bad person. I was working 14 hours a day at the dealership, and on the way home, we would stop and get a beer at the strip club. And I would be just a bad person, right? And sure, I was making a lot of money and I had material things, but I still had a void, obviously, that I was trying to fill. So what I realize is now that if you just put out good into the universe, it always comes back a billion times. And don't do everything for money. Don't do everything for money. Impact is more important than money. If you can help somebody in even the smallest fraction of a nugget or anything, I think that is all the feeling. Like, we just signed up a partnership with somebody where we're gonna do work for them. They have an incredible story. My trainer, shout out to JC. He was in prison, in Mexican prisons, in and out of Mexican prisons. He has an episode of Locked Up Abroad. Like, has his own episode. He was in the cartel, like knows all the, like, dude, crazy story. He has a YouTube that he's from the streets, doesn't know shit, like, as far as like this world, like monetization and how like courses and how to build brands and stuff like this. So he's been on over 68 podcasts. He said 68 podcasts, hasn't made $1, has a YouTube channel that has 82,000 subscribers that he videotapes, cuts, and edits. He makes like $7,000 a month just from that, but doesn't have nothing to sell. Didn't even know like nothing. He got out at the same time Wes Watson got out, and they were good friends.
Yep.
And Wes Watson has a whole team of people behind him, and he doesn't. Well, he came up to me at a coffee shop, and we started talking, and his cousin got him to get out of his comfort zone, talk to me. It's really weird actually how it happened. It was the day of my pop-up, and then he actually came to the pop-up, and after that we had coffee, and I signed him up as I signed up as his client for personal training, and I started talking to him, and I realized, dude, what the fuck is going on here? He's like, yeah, I've had a guy for 3 years, and haven't. This is like, I'm like, what's your website? He's like, I don't have a website. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have a fucking website? Like, do you have like a sales funnel? You got a click funnel? You got anything? He's like, no, what's that? I'm like, what? Bro, like, what do you mean? He's like, his stories, like, his videos they go viral. Like, one of his podcasts got like 1.2 million downloads on somebody else's podcast. They made money off of it. He doesn't make any money on nothing. He goes and speaks on prisons across the country. He just spoke to Jody Arias and all those people in Perryville. And then he's going to, in November, to what state? Florida, to speak to eight prisons in like 3 days. Free. He pays for his own flights and hotels. And I'm like, what are you, like, first of all, I'm going to be your manager. Like, right? And he's like, dude, I don't know what it is, but I feel like God put us together. I was just driving here because we just inked that deal up before we got here. And I said, hey, dude, like, I don't want, because they try to charge him like 40 racks to build a course. 40 racks.
Wow.
Like, who's fucking, are you, like, who's filming your course? Fucking, you know, I don't even know who it was, Steven Spielberg or something. Like, what the fuck? Long story short, we talked. He's my partner, and we agreed to not charge him anything up front, and we're gonna help him out with completely overhauling, creating courses, this landing page, everything, right? And ads. I'm gonna front everything, and we're gonna partner up on the back end. So we're partnering. I asked him, hey, do you want a short-term operational agreement, like a short-term partnership, where we get to X amount of revenue or time, and then we go the separate ways? Because that's what I'm straight up, hey, dude, I'd hate to get you to here, and then you start making a lot of money, and you're like, why am I still paying these people? Like, you know, I can pay them less, pay somebody else less. And I don't want the resentment. I'd rather not. Like, I'm not going to die. Like, I'm good, you know? Not to be cocky, but I'm like, yeah, I'll be all right.
But you value the relationship.
Yeah, I value the relationship more. Exactly. And the guy has a message. He's like, dude, you're just like, wow, I can't believe you're doing this. And I said, hey, let's do this. Let's do a short-term thing. We'll do a 33-66 partnership, 33% our way. I'll front all the money up front, and then we'll just chop it up in the back end. And he's like, no, let's do 60-40. And I was like, fuck, if you feel comfortable with that, we'll do that. This is legit. I'm not making this shit up. Just happened on the way here. That's why I'm late. And the guy just called me when I was pulling in the driveway, and he just wanted to say, hey, man, I just want to tell you thank you. Wow. Like, thank you. And he prayed for me. I told him I was going to be on this podcast. We did a prayer in my car before I walked in. And it's crazy how you meet people that value you more. Like, it's not that you're not good enough, Tino. It's just you're in the wrong room. That's all it is. Because in one room, you're a shitty youngster who's trying to get rich, who doesn't know what they're doing, right? But in another room, you're valued. You're a person with a purpose. So my advice to Tino at 20 is just get around the right people, be positive, and don't change your attitude for anyone.
Man, I love that. Yo, seriously, like that answer hits. And I love the alignment too, even the people that are coming in. There's like this, you're seeing that the people that you bring in as mentors, people that you bring in as partners, there's an alignment in value. And I gotta say this, alignment in value, not skill set, alignment in values. So final question I got for you here is, books changed my life. When I was in a place where I was living at home with my mom, living at home with my sister, barely making $20,000 a year, like just not being able to see another way out. Right. It was tapping into books, tapping into podcasts, and listening to people who thought bigger than me, who saw a different reality. So I consume a lot of information through books because it expanded my vision.
Absolutely.
Can you name one book that you're like, you know what,
That
this
changed
is...
my life.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a book that changed my life. It's called Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone.
That's such a good book.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. You got to listen to it, not read it.
That book is like fucking cocaine on paper.
Yeah, that book, I remember I had just made that money, and I had just left the car business. And that's when I discovered podcasts and audiobooks, when I told you. And that one hit real hard for me, because that's all I knew was the car business. It was like killing people, car business, killing people, car business. That's all I knew, right? So like learning that and getting that like really absolutely changed my life, because I resonated with everything he had to say. And I didn't have a drug problem, but I was an alcoholic. And he talks about his drug problem, and he talks about overcoming that, and then just being obsessed with being his best, not the best, his best. So that's the difference. Is a lot of people, especially with nowadays with social media, you compare yourself. Like, comparison is fuck.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's terrible. But it's so prevalent, and it's like, as humans, it's human nature to compare yourself to the guy next to you, right? To the guy winning or the guy losing, and I realized that you don't like, I just put my blinders on. I don't ever have no drama or beef with nobody. I don't have no enemies. Like, I'm just nice to everybody, right? Nope. And for me, I just kind of just hone in on that, on whatever it is my craft is. That's what I hone in on. But yeah, Be Obsessed or Be Average is the absolute best audio book that I've listened to, hands down. And I will say this, I read the Bible 2 times, Old Testament.
Let's go.
The Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Enoch, all that stuff. Because the King James Bible is cool, but it leaves out a lot of stuff, right? I've read the Quran. That it honestly changed a lot of my life, because a lot of people are Christian, right? They go to church every Sunday, they pray, they do all this stuff, but a lot of them never even read the Bible. I'm sure there's people in here that pray every day that haven't read the Bible. They just read the sections that the pastor's telling them to read that morning, right? Which there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm not a very religious person, per se, but I do believe in God, and I do believe that I'm here for a purpose, and there is a higher power. But if you read all those books, they kind of have kind of the same story with different like names, but it's the same story. They all know of each other, so it has to be real. Yeah. And I'm just a guy who never judges people, always has an open mind, and always listens. I read like every religious book, like all of them, like Hindu, all of them. Like,
that's a true seeker of knowledge.
Yeah, I'm always trying to learn. Like, when I get in bed, that's what I look at. I look at documentaries every night, constantly on message boards, on forums and different things of that. I'm trying to learn, trying to expand my knowledge. But what I do realize is that we've kind of, as a society, we've kind of gotten lopsided to what should be acceptable and what's not acceptable, and how we carry ourselves, and we've just kind of gotten really lax, which is fine, right? Like I said, I don't judge anyone, because I don't like to be judged myself. But reading those books is true. I'm not a Bible thumper, but if you read those Bibles and the Quran and those books, and you apply what you learn in those, it's crazy.
It was power to change your life. I got advice from Myron Golden, great sales guy, and I had him on the podcast a little while back, and he said, one day he just says, like, yo, you want to know the best business book I've ever read? And I'm just like, of course, like, I'm trying to make money.
Yeah.
Like, I'm being honest, like, I really want to make money. And he says, best business book I've ever read? The Bible. Yeah. He says, that's a business book right there. And because of him, it actually caused me to go back to scripture. It caused me to open it up. And it taught me to look for answers that I was never looking for before. And this is why it's so important that I want people to understand. You're also going to find what you're looking for. It's really important that when you go to these places, to set an intention on, is it that I want more structure in my life? Is it that I want to be able to produce wealth for me and the next generation? Is it that I want to be able to improve my health? Whatever it is, be intentional, and then go to these places of truth, of knowledge, and dig it out. So I mean, Be Obsessed to Be Average, amazing book, and then Scriptures, absolutely amazing.
Oh, for sure, man, for sure. Those two categories of books, for sure. Like, and constantly just trying to learn, right?
Yeah.
Getting around the right people, and don't be afraid to ask questions specific to your business. Like, I've been in rooms where people will pay a bunch of money to be there, and they're either scared to ask questions that are pertaining specifically to their business because they don't want to sound vulnerable or expose any holes in their business, or they just don't want to feel dumb. Yep. There's no dumb questions, especially when you're trying to, like, how can you frown upon somebody trying to better their situation for them, their family, their loved ones, and themselves. So
100%.
Anyway.
Well, Tino, let me ask you this. For the people that want to connect with you, that want to stay in touch, what's the best place for them to go and connect with you?
You can go to my website, sharktino.com. I have at the bottom, you can set like an appointment there. I have like a 15-minute thing. It's Monday through Thursday. I don't work on Fridays. But the easiest way is probably Instagram. If I don't respond to your DM, because I do get a lot of DMs, that end up in the request. Yep. Just do a comment, like DM me, and then put a comment on one of my pictures, because I do pay attention to that shit.
And what's cool is like it's actually you, right?
Yeah,
like,
I handle my stuff.
Yeah, and like that's like a really sick thing. Like
it's
sometimes,
stressful, though.
Trust me, like I get it, but you know, like it's amazing. Like people sometimes think like, oh man, maybe it's a VA responding.
Yeah, he'll never respond to me. Yeah,
and like it's actually you sitting there and reading it. So guys, if you reach out, be intentional with your reach out, and actually, you know, introduce yourselves. Say what you want to say and really express, like, hey, you know, Tino, I saw this, you know, you made this video, you made this post, I saw you on the podcast, I was inspired when you talked. Like, have a real conversation if you want to have an opportunity to really be remembered. And this is just human communication.
Absolutely.
101. It's just, this is how you talk to
First
other
impressions
people.
Are everything. So I get messages all the time that are like, hey, bro, that's the intro. And I'm like, okay, yeah,
that's going nowhere.
You're
What
gonna
is he
stay
supposed
there,
to do with
yeah.
that?
But if somebody's like, "Hey, Tino, I saw your content, I saw this, I had a real quick question, just wanted to pick your brain," ask the question. Just ask it. Just ask it.
Don't ask to ask a question.
Yeah.
Just
Can I ask you a question?
question?
Well, you just asked me one. So what's the real question? You know, just ask the question, and I'll get a message like that asks the question, boom, 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 and I'll send them a voice message like, "Yeah, this is what I think. What do you think?" And then I'll look for their response. But like, yeah, I'm very involved in my Instagram. That's like the main thing.
Nice.
That's the easiest way to contact me. But anybody in this room that needs anything, if I can help, whether big or small, I don't care. Like, I would be more than happy to hop on a call with anyone in here for free. I normally charge like $1,000 an hour. And mentorship packages all the way up to like 25,000. But I would do it for free for anybody in here that needs anything that I can help, whether it's specific to your real estate business, sales, or whatever. Like, I'd be more than happy to.
Man, I appreciate that. So guys, go to sharktino.com. Follow Tino at Shark Tino.
Not the people watching though, because there's probably a lot of you guys. So,
yeah. The rest of you guys, I'm sorry, you got to be in the right room.
I still got shit to do, you know? Yeah.
So Tino, I want to say first off, thank you so much for coming in.
me.
I appreciate you for making the time for us. You know, I know this is like a day where you normally take off, so for you to be here, to pour into other people, to pour into this room, and to pour into me, I seriously thank you so much.
Anything for you guys. I love you guys. I loved her for a long time, and then met Proxy, and it's like, wow, this guy's cool too. And I tell you, I watch your stuff, man. You're making a lot of impact in people. It's funny because as people online, we think, oh man, nobody's paying attention, or it's like not getting the reach that we want to, or I'm shadow banned, or something's going on. Like, why I went from, fucking 16,000 views on my stories to now I only have 2. Like, something's going on, right? But you have to think, like, I notice when I don't post, like today I haven't posted one thing, and I'm gonna reshare a bunch. I've gotten some here, but I'm gonna reshare and I'm gonna post. But if I go a couple days without posting, people will message me like, "Hey, is everything good?
Yeah.
Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, "What do you mean, am I okay?" Like, I'm on fucking vacation. And then I started realizing, like, damn, people actually pay attention. They actually care. Or I'll get good messages like, "Hey, what you said changed my life. Like, I quit my job and I went and got a sales job at T-Mobile and made a bunch of money, and like my family is thriving now. Like, and I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Or I quit my job, I bet on myself, I started my own business, I got business funding, I figured out how to, you know, do it myself, and now I'm doing good. And that means the world, dude. Like, for somebody to say like, hey, keep posting. So like, you're doing it. You're inspiring people.
I appreciate that.
Your content is valuable, and it just keep putting it out there so more eyes see it. That's all I can say. You need more eyes, right? Like, but we all need more eyes, right?
Dude, I appreciate that immensely. Thank you.
For sure.
Yo, what's up, everybody? I hope you enjoyed that amazing episode with Shark Tino. That conversation actually went on for about another hour and a half. We have exclusive content where we did Q&A with the live audience from the mastermind. And if you want access to that, you get access by being a member of MMC. So the best way to do that is to go to mmc.mindsetmarlin.com, where you could join today for just $1. You'll get full access to not only the behind the scenes of this particular episode, but the behind the scenes of all the other episodes I do with my other guests, as well as getting early access when I do interviews like this and we stream them live. I stream them live before they ever air on YouTube to my private community. So the best way to be a part of that is to go to join MMC by going to mmc.mindsetmarlin.com. And I will see you guys for the next episode.
I got $1 billion mindset, steady as a